Hello everyone, very good evening to you all. Vanakkam. So as a special thing, we also have MEPCO college to MBA college students who are also visible in their videos, who are switched on the videos. There are a lot of students who are listening to this program. It's not about we are seeing like say like 15 participants, but it is I think there is more than 50, 60 people sitting and listening, going to listen to this wonderful session. So thank you very much, Mr. Praveen, Professor Praveen, and the student. Welcome you all for this wonderful program where today we are going to have a session on B2B and B2C. What is it? Kind of marketing? What is the difference? Is all about. And I am actually Mr. Balasubramanian. I am the president of Advertising Club Madras, and I also work for the Namlar as a national head for the digital. So it is wonderful to have you here, and I welcome you all on behalf of the Art Club and the committee members. So it's wonderful to see you here. So now I also like to introduce Mr. Suraj, Secretary of Advertising Club Madras and co-founder of Digitally Inspired Media, to introduce our today's speaker to you all. Thank you very much. Over to you, Suraj.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out and being part of this session. Thank you, Prakash, for also taking the time out and making yourself available to impart knowledge to our members. And I'm sure there's like every other InsightView series, we impart a lot of knowledge to people through these sessions with eminent speakers like yourself. So thank you for taking the time out. Before we proceed, I would like to introduce Prakash to all of you today. So Prakash has over 30 years of experience in marketing and advertising as business head, CMO, strategy head. He is currently an independent consultant, advisor, coach, and teacher. After studying economics at Presidency College, Kolkata, he received a PDGM from IIM, Ahmedabad. He is also a certified CEO coach from the Coaching Foundation of India. He has held leadership positions at Vienna Network, Ogilvy, Publicis, Leo Group, and McCann Erickson. As an independent strategist, he has advised corporates as well as SMEs. He has helped companies define brands, evolve strategic marketing and communication plans, developed powerful content, and structure their marketing teams. As CEO coach, working with executives on their professional growth as leaders. He is a teacher and trainer, having taught courses and conducted workshops for the past 20 years at business schools and corporates. This includes corporate theater, a theater-based methodology to connect professionals to their own immense potential as leaders and team players. He has designed Top Dog, a simulation-based workshop which helps students and early career professionals absorb the fundamentals of marketing. He teaches at IFMR Kriya and Ashoka University. Prakash is also a theatre actor and a keen observer of culture. Thank you so much, Prakash, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Suraj, and it's so wonderful to see everybody here, and I am grateful for the opportunity to share some things I've learned with everybody. And so thank you so much. Also nice to know that there are so many students who are participating in today's talk, and that's something which is
Prakash,
quite cool.
just the correct number is there are 115 students who are listening to our program, seeing
100, 115 students. That's quite wonderful. And I do spend a lot of time with students. As was just mentioned, I teach a lot, and I really enjoy teaching because, as you grow older, students are your connection to what's new and what's happening in the world, and that's the future. So I find that connecting with students something very enriching and fruitful all the time. It's something which keeps me more agile and energetic. Great. So we're going to talk about these two terms, B2B and B2C marketing today. And we always get, I always get this question that, do you have B2B experience or do you have B2C experience, or, that, because somewhere the assumption is made that the B2B and B2C marketing are very different from each other. Perhaps they are, perhaps they are not. Let's try and discover in what ways they might be similar and in what ways they may be quite different over the next half an hour or so. Right now, for those who are not very familiar, some of the students may not be that familiar, so I'm just introducing very briefly. For those who are more experienced, please bear with me. Essentially B2B is business to business, right? When I'm as a business, I'm selling something to another business. So for instance, if you see that huge picture of that bulldozer on the screen, I might be going to a contractor or a contracting company or the government. Nowadays they use a lot of bulldozers. So right, and be selling them bulldozers. That's like a business to business transaction typically, because we don't normally as individuals buy bulldozers and keep it in our garage, right? We use it for very specific work-related purposes. So it's largely sold by organizations to organizations. On the other hand, the other picture is a beautiful Bentley car. This is something which individuals also buy. I mean, companies also buy cars, but bulk of what happens, when we think about cars, it's about individuals, you and I, sitting in our cars and driving around very fast all over the place. Okay. Now, intuitively, it seems that the two can be quite different, right? Let's explore further. Now, one of the questions I constantly get is also this: what is the difference between B2B and B2C marketing? When we do a talk, very often in the FAQ, somebody or the other will always ask. And there are, if you Google B2B and B2C marketing, what's the difference? You will get plenty of responses, and typically, and they will be very, there are certain 7 or 8 standard responses as to how the two are different. Let's take a look at some of these differences and see whether actually they are very different, or the same things can apply to both B2B and B2C. So before we do that, let's take a step back and say, there's B2B marketing and B2C marketing. But what is marketing itself? I think it's important for us, especially as students, to get this thing very clearly in our head as soon as we can. What is marketing supposed to do? We think of ads and we think of all of those things, but essentially what marketing is supposed to do, it's about creating and capturing value for a brand. Right? So what does creating mean? I have a customer. That customer must see value in what I am selling to them. Right? And the job of marketing is to create that value in the minds of the customer, so that the customer parts with her wallet and gives us some money, and we are able to capture some of that value. Okay, so if there's one phrase you will take away from today, and that's a very, very powerful idea, that marketing is all about creating value. If we constantly keep asking, what value have we created for our customer? What value have we created for our customer? We would have done our job as marketers. So before stepping into B2C and B2B, the role of all marketing is to create and capture value, whether it is B2B, whether it is B2C, whether it is D2C, any other kind of marketing. In order to do that, there are a number of things which a marketer does. The first thing is value is always in the context of a customer, right? So customer must see value. So understanding consumer behavior is a very important part of marketing, whether in B2B or when in B2C, we need to do this. Of course, research becomes an allied sort of activity in understanding consumer behavior. We do a lot of this in B2C and consumer, but somehow in B2B, the levels of research which are done are much lower, although the need is exactly the same. And then based on that, we do this activity called segmentation and targeting. I know this sounds like a marketing textbook, but very often we forget what's in those textbooks. It's very fashionable to say, oh, that's all in theory. In real life, it's very different. I'm sorry, in real life, it is not different at all. We have lots of marketers who don't apply the rigor, and so therefore we have a lot of average results. So after understanding customer behavior, after using research to help us do that, we segment and target our customer base. We do something called positioning. Now, that's the subject of a separate talk in itself, but positioning is perhaps the most strategic decision a B2B or a B2C marketer can take about their brand. And then we do product strategies which are based on that positioning. We do brand development and brand strategies based on that positioning. We decide on pricing, which is both a way of, which is where the value actually comes to us, both from the point of view of how much money we can make, at the same time, what signals my pricing will send out to somebody. And then, of course, distribution. Where do we, the 4 Ps, one of the Ps is distribution or place. Where do we make our product available? And then, of course, there is brand communication or all the fancy advertising which you see. So now, why I'm covering this is simply to say that the job of a marketer, whether in B2B or B2C, begins and ends with doing this. Okay. And it's very critical that any differences after this is a nuance and not a fundamental difference. Okay. So after doing all this, what happens? Essentially, what we are trying to do is we're trying to get all our customers to know that we exist, right? To know what we do. After that, we are trying to get all our customers to understand exactly what we do. So it's not just okay to say, yeah, I know you're a bulldozer company, but I must also understand that these are the 18 features your bulldozer has. And then based on that, I must like it. I must like this whole idea saying, yeah, this is the kind of bulldozer for me. And over time, I must continue to buy that bulldozer or continue to buy that Bentley. And also tell other people, I use this Bentley car or I use this particular kind of bulldozer as a company. And I think all of you will also benefit if you buy it. Okay. So if we take a step back, marketing is about creating and capturing value. And we do a number of processes around that central thought, like segmenting, targeting, positioning, and so on. And the purpose of all this ultimately is to get people to know, understand, like, and love our brand. Okay. Now, let's come back to our main question. What is the difference between B2B and B2C? Now, one of the things which people say about B2B and B2C is that B2B is different from B2C because usually we are selling very costly items. Like that bulldozer there. It's not something cheap. When we're selling something to a company or when we're selling something to a business, usually these are high ticket sizes, high priced items. And B2C is usually, like when we are going and buying some milk powder or we're going to buy a packet of Maggi noodles or things like that. That's the usual quick association. But, like we said, here is a bulldozer and I had no idea how much a bulldozer costs. So yesterday I was just Googling and I found that you can buy a bulldozer for even up to 1.5 crores. There it is there for 80 lakhs, 90. It's like buying a car. Right. And I said it's like buying a car. So it's not just B2B, which has high ticket sizes. Sometimes very often even B2C has high ticket sizes, right? So if I were to buy that Tesla, one of the latest models, it might cost me up to 1.5 crores to buy, which is the same price as a bulldozer. So isn't B2B and B2C both can be about high ticket prices? Or, what is 1.5 crores? If I were to buy a nice luxury apartment somewhere down OMR, it might cost me 1.5 crores. In Bombay, I might be able to buy a bathroom for 1.5 crores, right? So this whole business of high ticket sizes being associated with B2B is also a bit flawed in terms of an assumption. So for instance, a typical B2B item is office stationery, right? Now, selling all these clips and pens and scissors and stuff, which every executive, when you join, you're given one set to keep in your drawer. Now, that is nowhere near 1.5 crores. That will be worth a few hundred rupees. And if you have even 1,000 employees, that comes to just a few lakhs of rupees. So that's not a particularly high ticket sale. So one of the things we associate with B2B and saying that they are different because it's all about high ticket sizes. Honestly speaking, high prices can also apply to B2C. Let's look at another kind of difference which people highlight. One is B2B has longer sales cycles. And many of us who are in B2B or B2B sales, we realize that, when we start selling something, we'll go to a company, we'll meet them, then there'll be many meetings and many decisions and many proposals will be given and lots of negotiation will happen. By the time I start selling something to by the time I end it, irrespective of what I'm selling, whether, right, it takes a long time. Okay. And the big difference between B2B and B2C is this, that it takes a very long time to sell everything in B2B, but in B2C, it doesn't take that long. Okay, now a typical B2B buying journey, you don't have to go through the details in this, but I just, it's very complicated. There are many rounds of meetings. There are many people to meet. There are all kinds of documents to be sort of submitted. But let's look at somebody who's trying to buy a car. Now, most of you would have, those of you who bought a car, or some of your students who might buy a car very soon in future, you'll realize that even a simple thing like buying a car, and we always look at cars from childhood, can take for months. Not because because in our head it takes so long. We'll check out cars, we'll check out prices. One day we'll feel like buying this, next day we'll feel like buying that. And we'll ask all our friends, we'll change our mind 10, 15 times. We'll wait for an offer to come during Diwali, right? So, but from the time I decide to buy a car or buy a house or things like that, and finally buying it can also be quite long. So both in B2B and B2C, you can have scenarios where sales cycles are very long. Okay, so to me, even that's not a satisfactory difference between the two. They also say that B2B, because it's companies are buying, they are very data driven, and all decisions are very emotionless. The decisions are taken by very, very strong processes, and so it's something which, unlike in B2C, where the person goes to a shop, they like it, and they just pick it up. In fact, B2B is also very often referred to sometimes as B2B communication. I've been in advertising for many years. As boring to boring, where you have to do very serious kind of information. But one of the things we need to remember, and this is true whether it's B2B or B2C, at the other end of our marketing activity is a human being. An Excel sheet or a computer is not buying from you. It's a human being who's taking a decision and who's buying from you. Second is, a lot of people will say data is very important, B2B, because ROI is very important. For a company, ROI is very important. ROI is equally important for an individual as well. You may not take out an Excel sheet and calculate, but for a homemaker who is on a limited budget, or a household which is on a limited budget, everything is stretched according to that budget. And people are always seeing what value can I extract out of this. Those of you who remember some old iconic advertising, there was this character called Lalita ji of Surf, because she always was calculating the ROI of buying Surf instead of buying Nirma, right? So things like data and emotions are part of B2B. Data is part of B2C, right? And in fact, I love using this example, and this is something I worked on myself. There was this company very recently, and we were sending out mailers to businesses for them to switch to e-invoicing, right? When that requirement came up a year and a half back. And we used to put out these very scientific mailers, and our sales really started picking up, and our inquiry started picking up when we switched to this kind of advertising, where it was really more emotional. It was really more, something which was producing a smile. Sometimes it was producing an emotion, right? And this is when responses started increasing quite a lot. And one would think, and this is a hardcore B2B, very serious kind of financial product. Okay. On the other hand, when we are buying B2C products like toilet cleaners, I mean, there's a limited role for emotion there, in fact. Well, of course, we can see Akshay Kumar selling something. We're really worried about, is my toilet going to be clean? When I try it, is it sparkling or not? If it's not, I don't care who is selling it to me, whether it's Akshay Kumar or some other actor or Vijay or whoever it is, I will switch, right? So sometimes B2C can be very, very data-driven and emotionless, while B2B can be highly emotional and depend a lot on catching people's hearts rather than their minds alone. Now, a lot of people say that B2B is not brand-driven at all. Right now, I don't want to say much in this. Just look at these. These are famous B2B brands all over the world. Now, most of us who don't know anything about these brands also will say that, oh, these are all very good brands. Right? What do we even mean by that? I mean, it is just that their reputations built up by these companies, whether we have done business with them or not, we all say these are good companies, these are good brands, these must be right. Is huge. Even the government, when you put out a tender, you'll sometimes see a notice which says proposals invited from reputed companies. What does this reputed companies mean? Reputed companies obviously means that there is this very abstract thing called brand, which is playing in people's minds, saying, people must think, that's a very good company. In fact, there is a very old saying, and some of you may have heard it and some of you may not, that in the days when IBM used to sell mainframes and computers and all that, there was a saying which meant that nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. Okay, that it was a very safe bet. If you're in a company and you ordered IBM, although it was costlier, nobody really would fire you because it was the right thing to do. That was the reputation of IBM, the brand. It wasn't a scientific thing at all. It was just based on the fact that IBM is known as the best company in that. IBM is known as somebody who's very good at what they do. So therefore, it's something which, that's a phrase which kind of stuck to IBM. So B2B also can be very, very emotional and very, very, soft in a manner of speaking. Some people will say B2B has multiple stakeholders involved, but B2C has only, very limited. The person who's buying is the main person, right? Now, I don't know whether you ever tried planning a family holiday. Especially when you have two little kids, you want to do something, your spouse may want to do something else, but at the same time, both of you may agree, but then you are also thinking, oh God, how will the kids spend their time? What are they interested in? Kids may come up and say, this time I want to go to X, this time I want to go to Y, this time I want to go to the seaside, this time I want to go to the mountains. So there are multiple stakeholders which you already need to please. And as the larger your family, try planning a holiday with friends. Right? And you will find that even in B2C, there are very often multiple stakeholders involved. In fact, especially for a lot of children's products, the buyer is somebody, the influencer is somebody, the user is somebody else. Right? And so therefore, even in whether it's B2B or B2C, there are multiple stakeholders involved. So even to me, that's not a sort of satisfactory difference between the two. In fact, talking about multiple stakeholders, let me give you a staggering fact. Right? Over 90%, in fact, the number may even be higher, of businesses in India are small and medium enterprises. And one of the characteristics of a small and medium enterprises is that they are one-person shows. That all important decisions in that enterprise, in that business is taken by one person, who's typically the owner, right? So which means that if 90% of India's businesses, and in fact the world's businesses are small and medium enterprises, 90% of B2B business also addresses small enterprises, right? Or, or a very large percentage addresses small enterprises. And there are no multiple stakeholders. It's one person who's taking all the decisions. So once again, this multiple stakeholders in B2B versus, one stakeholder in B2C is also a flawed argument, right? So this whole business of high ticket sizes, long sales cycles, multiple stakeholders, rational decision making are actually common characteristics of B2B and B2C. They are not a B2B and B2C thing. They are a category to category thing. So you'll have some B2C categories where all this is true. You'll have some B2B categories where some of this is not true. If you're selling small stationery items or tea or coffee to an office, right? It's not a high ticket size. The sales cycles are not very long. One or two people quickly decide. Right? And the decision making is not rational. Sometimes you just look at convenience and say, okay, just give it and let's not spend too much time debating this. Okay. But still, when we talk about B2C and we talk about B2C and B2B, we feel, look, there is a difference. Right? And there is a difference. Okay. So, they feel a little different. Let me spend 5 minutes talking about, since we've raised so much tension about are they different at all, and now I've done this long lecture on why I feel they're not different. Let me go the other side and say, in what way does B2B and B2C actually differ? If none of these are the basic differences, in what way do they actually differ? Okay, and that difference lies in the mindset of customers. So the B2B customer and the way they think are a little different from B2C customers and the way they think. Okay, I'll use a phrase now, which is the nature of incentives in the buying decision are quite different for B2B and B2C. Now, what I mean by this, for those of you who are not comfortable with that phrase, that when I am buying something, there is an incentive for me to buy it, right? That is, I am going to pay some money and I'm going to get something in return, whether it's B2B or whether it's B2C. Now, the incentives with which a B2B buyer and a B2C buyer evaluate things are inherently different from each other. Let me explain. So, in B2C, the biggest incentive is a rosy future, right? So, let's say the B2B buyer evaluates the offering in terms of benefits that may accrue to them. So if I'm buying something, I'm trying to imagine what benefits will come to me. So for instance, will my clothes be whiter? Will I get brighter pictures using this phone? Will I have tastier pizza? Will I have sparkling bathrooms, stylish haircuts, wonderful holidays, right? The biggest incentive to buy something is I'm imagining what will happen to me when I'm buying those products, right? Because I am going to experience, or my family is going to experience those products, right? Whether it is better holidays or something I'm buying for my children, and I say, oh, my children are going to be healthier or smarter or whatever, right? And the biggest incentive to purchase, I'm just evaluating the money I'm paying against these incentives, that my life will be glorious at the end of buying this. Okay. Now, in the case of the B2B buyer, the incentives are slightly different. In B2B, the biggest incentive is not the beauty of what I'm going to buy. The biggest incentive is the avoidance of mistakes. A good B2B decision is when I avoid a mistake. Now, what happens is, in a B2B purchase, what happens is that, of course, there is a lot of advantages and benefits which the company gets, like efficient production or, faster computation or smarter employees or more cash in hand or, cheaper raw materials, etc. All my B2B decisions go towards serving some of those needs. But so the benefits do not accrue to the person who's taking the decision. The benefits are shared across the whole organization. But what happens typically that if there is a mistake in that particular decision, there is a disproportionate amount of blame which at least that particular person will feel comes on himself or herself. Okay, so the nature of so there the gain and the in B2C the kind of gain which I get goes to the person who's taking the decision. In B2B, what happens is that the gain is shared by the whole organization, right? But the blame very often, and even if, in a particular organization's culture, it is not true, that person will feel, oh God, I do not want to get blamed for a wrong decision. Okay. So in B2B, the biggest incentive is the avoidance of mistakes. So as a result, we see one, very, very big characteristic of B2B decisions. Your customer ends up taking a long time to decide, not because it's a complicated purchase, but they're evaluating their incentives, saying, I should not get this wrong. The price of failure is often borne, at least in reputational terms, by the individual who's signing on the dotted line. So therefore, one big difference in the way we look at B2C and B2B is the way we look at the buyer. The buyer is a little tense in B2B about making an error. Okay. And that's why it's not uncommon, that we'll have a situation where we've gone and done fantastic presentations and meetings and everything seems to be set, and suddenly the trail will go cold. Your client, your prospective client who's been talking about huge orders, etc., will disappear. Okay, because they'll get cold feet. They'll say, no, this is just too big. Let me consult a few more people, and they'll send you to do a few more meetings with various others because they don't want to be the person belling the cat, just in case everything goes wrong. Okay, so the buyer is often paralyzed by the fear of failure rather than the upsides of success. So in B2C, decisions are made based on the upsides of success. You know, that when I'm buying a product, what wonderful things it will do to me. But on the other hand, in B2B, that's important. But what is far more important, that I take my decision in such a way that this does not go wrong. So as a result, very often I will push the decision. And when I'm pushing the decision for later, or when I'm deciding not to, get into something new at all, for the seller, it becomes a very, very difficult scenario. So for me, the big difference between B2C and B2B is in this overcoming of this fear of failure, this overcoming of this decision-making delays, which are involved in the selling and marketing process. In fact, there is a lot of things which are written about, and it's an area which especially B2B companies struggle to overcome, because their own customers really are very, very worried about failure. In fact, an entire book has been written on it called The Jolt Effect. Some of you can take a look at it. But even after reading the book, the problem will not get solved that easily. Okay. So therefore, one of the big things in B2B, one of the big decision marketing activities in B2B compared to B2C is in this whole business of hand-holding, relationship building, and other trust-creating measures. Because the person who's taking the decision is more really afraid of things going wrong. While in B2C, things can go wrong, but the pleasure of the decision sometimes outweighs the fear, right? And then all the fear and all the incentives are yours. So you can decide to, say, okay, fine, it's my fault, I take it. But in an organizational scenario, even among SMEs, what happens is that word will get around. Your workers may say, oh, he took a wrong decision, right? Or your colleagues in the association may say, oh, he took a wrong decision. So therefore, in the B2B marketing process, one big difference is the deep additional time and weight you have to invest in, in hand-holding, relation building, and trust. The rest of it, this is between one category and another, really are the nuances there. And even within B2C, two categories can be very different from each other, just like B2B and B2C, right? So very often what happens is that, and this I'll kind of, before I summarize, that B2B, business to business, is therefore often seen as a person to person or even a heart to heart kind of market. Because we understand this was fears, right? And spend a lot of time in helping overcome it. So it's not just about telling that customer that, look, you buy my product or you buy my brand and your life is going to be hunky-dory. You have to overcome, and these are things which the customer normally doesn't say so easily. Okay, so in sum, before I, since we are closing on our time, I'll just summarize by saying the fundamental building blocks of marketing remain the same for B2B or B2C. We have to do segmenting, targeting, positioning, we have to do research, we have to do product development, we have to do brand development, pricing, distribution, and all of them. They are exactly the same. In both, we seek to create value for our customers. The role of marketing is only to create value for our customers, whether it's a B2B customer or a B2C customer. The big difference is in buyer psychology, the nature of the incentives. Okay, we saw that in the case of B2B, it's about avoiding failure, while in the case of B2C, it's about imagining success, right? B2C customers focus on success. B2B customers tend to focus a lot on failures. So therefore, our collective strategies, right, have to take into account this. And this heightened awareness will inform and strengthen our marketing strategies. Okay, so I will close here. We are nearing our time. I'm happy to take any questions on B2B, B2C, or any other aspect of marketing, which anybody would, the few minutes we have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prakash, for for this enlightening session on B2B marketing, especially. I think for the past, couple of sessions, we've had more B2C, insights and knowledge particularly. But this one was a very different take on things, especially for the audience today. I think it's a good eye opener. Thank you so much for the time, Prakash. I think we'd open it out for a few questions for the next, say, 5 or 6 minutes. Please feel free to write your questions on the chat window, everyone, or you can even ask the question, switch on your video or even raise your hand and ask a question.
Yeah,
Please feel free.
Harsha Gupta has raised her hand. Please
Hello.
ask your question.
Hi, Harsha.
Hi, sir. Hi, Prakash, sir. Thank you for the session. So, I'm working with an agency of Delhi, and we make small marketing
Okay.
campaigns and websites for B2B clients, especially in the data stacking sector. So the problem which I face is that because the stakes are so high, when I want to know what is the consumer's perception towards them, they're not that willing to let us engage with the end user customers who are at CXO levels of big organizations. So in that case, I did Googling aspect, YouTube aspect, but still there's a lot of anxiety in designing something which I completely don't understand. So what to do in certain cases?
I just I mean, you're an agency, and then which domain of B2B you said?
Data stack. It's in the IT
Ashita?
data stack.
IT. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So there's no ready answer for this. One of the problems in B2Bs has always been this, the ability to reach your final customer.
Yeah.
Now, there's no direct way of doing this. What I would typically do is, try and open out as many informal channels as possible. Okay. In the sense that try and find people in adjacent businesses. I might not get exactly the particular industry your client is going to is dealing with, or a particular domain, but I'll find people who are similar. Now it's easier said than done, I do understand. But sometimes when we rack our brains and look at our own networks, right, of people we've come across, of when we put the word out quickly, sometimes you might send out a few feelers, or look at your own LinkedIn and see some of your potential target audience might already be there, right? Or go to networking events, especially stuff which your clients' products might be displayed. That's what I would do. In the sense, in the few opportunities I've had for B2B marketing, that it's not easy. They will never, give you access to clients, right? Everybody is very, very tense about that. The clients themselves may not be very willing to talk, right? So the thing is, I think a mixture of personal contacts and good substitutes. That is, are there other industries in which I know people where this could be very, very similar? Okay. One of the things you also can put out is make little posts, the way you use your own LinkedIn, right? Put out some hypothesis, ask 2-3 questions, in the post which you do, and see what kind of responses you get. Sometimes if you're stuck on one thing, just ask the question and say, look, I'm looking to understand this thing better. These kind of customers better. In my experience, this is what I know. Is this correct? Is this wrong? Can somebody, and you'll find that there are lots of people willing to help. Okay, because so I can't give you one pat satisfactory answer saying, press this button and suddenly your problems will be solved. But it's a bit of a hard grind. But I think we must trust our networks a little more, and we must be happy to meet adjacent places. In the sense that, not exactly the customer, but somebody who's similar in some other industry. That's the only generic reply I can give you right now. That's what I would do. I would try and do, because it happens often enough that you're working on something, but your clients, you don't have access to the end client.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, sir. This-
Pleasure.
Excellent question, Harshita. Do we have another question? Yes, Uma from Media News for You and our treasurer asks, how will AI impact B2B and B2C marketing?
Uh, I mean, that's a very general question. I think two things. One is where it will be of a direct help is, of course, I think suddenly the ability to crunch a lot of data will increase, right? Especially in B2B, we don't do enough of data related work. Although, especially if we're dealing with tech companies and engineering companies and all of that, there's a lot of data which gets generated. So one of the things which AI will help is in, I think, the ability for us to analyze our data better, okay, and derive meaning out of it, which still requires art, by the way. I mean, how much ever science we put into this, it still requires our minds to ask the right questions of the data. But I think the ability to crunch the data the way we want, I think is something which AI can definitely help. B, I think what AI can also help us do is micro-targeting, right? So in certain businesses, for instance, where you can have a large number of segments in our traditional way of looking at marketing, we would choose one or two segments and just focus on them, right? And we do that simply because it was convenient and it was a good allocation of resources and things like that. But now with, in this digital atmosphere in which we all live in, the ability to break your audience into micro segments and very small segments, right? What AI might help us even from a creative point of view is to be able to, almost real time generate different kinds of messages, which are very, which act upon the data and which are, very sharply targeted to these micro segments. So I would say, in almost every area, both from analysis of data, the customer research, as well as in creative execution, right down there, I feel that there is going to be use for AI. But having said that, technology can only do so much unless our minds work. It's like asking, so technology can copy things, but this is one area where we haven't been very great at analyzing data, simply because, not just because, we can't crunch numbers, but because our ability to think, our ability to look at data and find a story in it, right, has always been challenged. I mean, we haven't been very good at it, unfortunately. So we still have to get very, very good at that. So the emphasis on the art of marketing can never go away, but now we have the science which can really help us with that. Previously, the science really couldn't help us that much. But now all the more reason that the art of marketing has to be emphasized again and again, because there's this treasure trove of information there. But how to use them will come from our ability to think, and not by somebody's ability to run a computer and a program.
Thank you so much, Prakash. Great question, Umar. So yes, and I think we're done with our Q&A session.
Excellent.
For this InsightView series. I would like to hand over the session to Umanath, who's the treasurer of the Advertising Club of Madras. Over to you, Uma.
Hi, Prakash. Thanks very much for taking us through another fantastic knowledge session, because we have witnessed so many speakers from different arena, and when I look at your profile, you are a complete package in terms of marketing, advertising, media, and even performance, theater, everything you have done with. So it is really interesting to see a person like you sharing your knowledge with us, and you took us through very interesting aspects of the decision making when it comes to the consumer in the world of B2B and B2C, and how it will be modified or how it will be influenced by data, emotions, and even the impact of brand um, salience and its equity, how it will have in both the sides, in B2B as well as in B2B. And very importantly, how at one point where the buyer psychology, which how you have differentiated, it will be very useful for me. It is personally as a B2B platform owner, it gives me a greater understanding that it is the buyer psychology that has a greater impact, a differentiating factor between the B2B and the B2C. So thanks very much for sharing your knowledge, and I would like to thank the President Bala, Secretary Suraj, and the whole team of Ad Club Indra and team who put their great efforts behind, and the digital marketing team from the members, and on behalf of the EC, Ad Club EC, I thank you all for
Kumar,
being
there is one last question from Mr. Anbu to Prakash.
okay.
How does D2C differs from B2C? How
D2C,
does D2C?
direct to consumer. Where does it?
Yeah. So to me, D2C it's a channel. The principles are pretty much like B2C. But having said that, I have, I need to apply my mind a little more to that. But, to me, D2C, direct to consumer, I'd look at it more as a channel rather than, a larger B2B or B2C kind of question there. So that's I would not venture more than that at this point in time.
You mean to say a channel that is used to reach a B2C?
Yes, I mean, it's right. So I could be a B2C company of which D2C becomes my channel.
Okay.
Yeah.
But of course, the entry of D2C has given, a consciousness towards being a meaningful brand, sustainability, and so many other things which
Yes.
the traditional corporate brands were ignoring. So
Yes, absolutely.
D2C has influenced. Very recently, it was about many brands taking the sustainability route, and prior to that, it was about the equality and so many other aspects which it is guiding even the mainstream brands to follow the suit. That way, we should really
Absolutely.
thank for the path-breaking ideas that these brands are bringing into the marketing streams.
Certainly.
And anyhow, as a winding up, I thank you, Prakash, and all of you. And it was a wonderful knowledge sharing, and I'm looking forward to engage you in another wonderful forum. Thanks much, and all everyone for logging on. Hope you had enough to a new dimension of takeaway from today's session. Looking forward for another wonderful session in another fortnight's time. Thank you. Signing off.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah,
Have a good
again,
evening.
thank you everyone from the MEPCO College of Management Sivagasi, the 115 students.
Wow.
And we also had 6 students coming from Government Arts
Yeah.
College, Trichy. So
let's look forward to engage more students also in the coming sessions.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think we
yes,
should encourage the
absolutely.
students to
Yeah,
come up
yeah,
and ask whatever question. It's okay if it's, there's no right, there's no wrong.
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. That is advertising in fact.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you
Thank you
so
everyone.
much. That's
Thank
sign.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.